Okay, hello stream, and we are live. We will be continuing the study on the Manual of Insight by the Venerable Mahasi Sayadaw. This is the book. Got a little flare there. And this is how it looks. And this is how it looks on the back. On the other back. And yeah. So, Mahasi Sayadaw's Manual of Insight. And the last time we learned about a few people, or some people who served as examples of morally impure people who actually attained to full arahantship, and how that is actually possible. So even though maybe you have lived your life as a layperson and you have kind of corrupted your own livelihood, it is still possible to become enlightened. And we also went through some of the very heavy karmic obstacles, the kammantaraya, which will be a cause for immediate downfall at death. So they are, as we learned in the last episode, killing one's mother, killing one's father, and killing an arahant, and injuring a Buddha, and then for monks of the order, creating a schism in the Sangha, which the last one is not possible to do if you are a layperson. So we are focusing on the first four, and also remembering the fifth one, if indeed there are any monks who might be watching along during this study session, which of course they are very welcome to do, and that will be very awesome and amazing. And yeah, so with that, I think we should get into a comfortable position for receiving the Dhamma and get ready to study this awesome book. I really find this to be amazing so far. Yeah, so last time we had a few examples of different types of people's enlightenment. And I think today we will be continuing on based on those examples or those people, and kind of getting a clarification on how different types of people are suited to different trainings. So depending on your temperament, you would be given different meditation objects which would suit your temperament or type of personality, since we all have different things to work on. Yeah. And everything looks fine. We're alive, and the green stuff, which is supposed to be green, is green. So here we go. How different types of people are suited to different trainings. And I think we should always start with doing the intro, paying homage to the Buddha. So we say like this: Namo Buddhassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, and the perfectly self-enlightened one. And we can also do a shorter version, which goes like this. Namo Buddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, and the perfectly self-enlightened one. And the third version that goes like this. Namo Buddhaya. Homage to the Worthy One. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, and the perfectly self-enlightened one. So with that, I think we're ready to continue in this book. And right now we are at the top of page 31. So we still have a little way to go, but we'll be there in no time. Okay. So yeah, as I said, how different types of people are suited to different trainings. Among these immoral lay people who were enlightened, Ariya, the thief, and Sarakani were clearly not yet in their final lives, as they only became stream enterers. It goes without saying that one could attain path and fruition without already having purified one's morality in advance if one were in one's final life. Some say that these three men were persons of quick understanding, Ukatitanyu, or persons who understand through elaborations, Vipanchitanyo. In other words, persons with exceptionally quick and discerning spiritual faculties. And this is why they were able to become stream enterers without purifying their morality in advance. If they had been persons to be guided, Neya, they would have needed to purify their morality beforehand. And then we have a footnote. What does it say? Okay, so these Tanyu, Vipanchitanyu, and Neya, an explanation of this can be found in the numerical discourses. Anguttara Nikaya, page 1702. However, this line of reasoning is not consistent with the Pali texts, commentaries and sub-commentaries that describe the person to be guided in this way. What kind of person is to be guided? It is a person who gradually gains a clear understanding of the Dhamma by learning, discussing, applying wise attention, and associating with good companions. Such a person is called a person to be guided. And we have two footnotes, 63 and 64. Okay, referring to guidance in specifically the Four Noble Truths, and then we have the Pali of what I just read, which goes like this. Kattamo cha pukkalo neyo, yassa pukkalassa uddesatto, paripucchato, yoniso manasi karotto, kalayana mitte sevato, bhajato, pairupassato, evang anupapena, dhamma abhisamayo oti, ayang ujjati pukkalo neyo. This passage explains that a person to be guided attains path and fruition by learning how to practice meditation, asking about what is not clear with regard to the instructions, properly practicing by applying wise attention, and approaching a teacher when necessary to clear up any doubts and to arouse energy, faith, and enthusiasm. Note that nowhere is it mentioned that one must purify one's morality in advance. Another teaching on this topic comes from the Nitipakarana. Insight based on concentration is suitable for a person of quick understanding. Concentration based on insight is suitable for a person to be guided. Alternating concentration and insight is suitable for a person who understands through elaboration. Training in wisdom is suitable for a person of quick understanding. So we're still going through different types of people, suited for different trainings. Training in concentration and wisdom are both suitable for a person who understands through elaboration. Training in morality, concentration, and wisdom are all suitable for a person to be guided. And then we have the Pali here. Ukatitanyusa sammata kamma vipassanā sappaya neyasa vipassanā mo sammato vipanchitanyusa sammata vipassana yuganta ukati tanyusa mudukka desana ahipanyasika neya tikka desana attisilasika ja apichitasika ja apipanyasika ja vipanchitanyusa tikamudukka desa atichitasika ja atipanyasika ja. According to this commentary, a person to be guided who is skilled in the attainment of jhana can retire to that attainment every time they become exhausted and restless from their insight meditation practice. This allows their concentration and insight knowledge to become mature. Then they will no longer feel exhausted and restless, and may even sit tirelessly for a whole day or night. This is why the attainment of jhana is very helpful for a person to be guided. Nowadays, most yogis frequently encounter the difficulties mentioned above, but since they have... Oh, wait a minute. I just skipped a little bit ahead here. So, we just turned the page, right? So I should actually be reading from up here. This also suits the Pali I was just reading on different types of person. So very much excuse me for that. I kind of just forgot we just turned the page. So let me try and focus up a little bit here. Okay. The commentary bases the suitability of practices on personality type. But these are not prerequisites for enlightenment. For example, training in morality is not mentioned as particularly suitable for persons of quick understanding and persons who understand through elaboration. But this does not mean that a monk's moral violations are not an obstacle to his enlightenment if he is a person of quick understanding or a person who understands through elaboration. Likewise, it does not mean that a person to be guided must fulfill morality and concentration in advance. Otherwise, the attainment of jhanic concentration would be a prerequisite for persons to be guided and persons who understand through elaboration, and that is impossible. The conclusion that should be drawn from the above Pali reference is that the prior development of morality and concentration very much helps a person to be guided to get enlightenment, but is not strictly necessary. Let me explain the reasoning behind the guidelines given in the above commentary. Types of people suited to training in morality. A person to be guided requires a long time to complete his or her practice. Over the course of that time, such people will tend to reflect on their morality, and if they find deficiencies in it, their hearts will not be at peace. They tend to have a lot of remorse when remembering past violations, even if their morality is pure at the moment. If they cannot do away with their remorse, worry, and anxiety, might break their insight meditation. So it might break their insight meditation. On the other hand, when such people reflect that their morality has been pure for a long time, or at least for the time that they have been practicing meditation, they will surely feel delight, joy, and happiness, calm, and tranquility. As a result of this, their concentration and insight knowledge will improve. So for a person to be guided, it is very helpful to purify moral conduct over a long period of time, or at least for the period when he or she is practicing meditation. The types of people suited to training in concentration. When a person of quick understanding listens to a short and concise Dhamma talk, they will develop insight knowledge and path knowledge very quickly. So the opportunity to repeatedly attain or enter the jhanas does not present itself to them. For this reason, morality and concentration are not mentioned as particularly suited to persons of quick understanding, and morality is not mentioned as particularly suited to persons who understand through elaboration. However, concentration very much helps the insight meditation practice of a person to be guided, as described in the following commentary. So before we... let me just read this and I will add a comment. When one's insight concentration and insight knowledge are yet immature, and one practices sitting for a long time, one grows physically exhausted. One feels a burning inside, sweat oozes from the armpits, one feels heat coming out of the head, one experiences stress, and one's mind becomes restless. Then one retires to the attainment of jhana, so as to relieve the exhaustion and stress. Then the practice of insight meditation is resumed. Sitting for a long time again produces the same feeling, and again one retires to the attainment of jhana for relief. Thus, the attainment of jhana is very helpful to insight meditation. Yasa hi samadhi pi taruno vipassanapi tassa vipassanang patapetva atichirang nisinasa kayo kilamati anto akiwiya uttahati kacheti seda muchanti matta kattu usamawati wiya uttahati cittang hanyati vihanyati vipandati so punna sammapatting sammapachitva tang paritamritva mutukang katva samasitva punna vipassanang patepeti tassa punna chiratang nisinasa tatewa hoti so punna sammapating sammapajja tatewe karoti vipassanāya hi bahupakara sampatti. So two things I just want to say. One thing is that as we do the intro, we say the Buddha is perfectly enlightened. So that means that our Buddha, or our present Buddha Gautama, this Buddha Sasana, which has lasted for almost 2,600 years, his enlightenment was perfect. And what does it mean when enlightenment is perfect? Well, one thing that makes our Buddha different from, let's say, Vipassi Buddha. I think the first Buddha of this kappa, don't hang me up on that, but the Vipassi Buddha had a very, very long life, maybe 80,000 years. So the way he developed Vipassi, the earlier Buddha of a different era from long time ago. So he, unlike our Buddha who, when he left the castle, he saw the sign of death and sickness and old age, and that no one was able to escape this. So he saw this all on one trip, leaving the castle, from where he was a prince, crown prince. And Vipassi, he left also in the same way, but he saw one thing at a time. So when he saw first time a sickly person, or maybe it was an old person, and our Buddha also saw a recluse or a monk, not to forget that. But anyway, turning back here, so Vipassi saw one thing at a time, and then he returned to the castle for a long time. And then he went out again, and returned again, and went out again, and returned again. And this is also because he had such a long time. The human lifespan back then was very long, compared to our Buddha who lived 80 years. So, returning back to why our Buddha's enlightenment was perfect, it is because our Buddha developed his mind so that concentration and wisdom were in tandem, building up, and suddenly at the peak, then he reached enlightenment. Whereas I believe that Vipassi, he built one up and then he built another up. And that was also maybe not because of his long life, but it was made possible by his long life. So here we have an example of someone who is stirred from the insight meditation practice and then returns to the jhana practice. And this is just one example. So, but I always think that's nice to think about, that our Buddha, a very short-lived Buddha, comparing to the previous Buddhas of different time ages, or different kappas, or eons even. So he had a perfect enlightenment. And the second thing I wanted to point out was, why do I read all this Pali, and what is the benefit of reading the Pali? So let me just give you a good reason for why it's good to read Pali. So for example, if you were to learn and remember 4 Pali words, the 4 satipatthana, kaya, which means body, and vedana, which means feelings, and citta, which means the mind, or let's just translate it as mind here, citta, mental volitions, and dhamma, which means the teachings, or we could also call them truth, because dhamma is something to be realized. So when we finally understand and see the truth, that is dhamma. But it is also called dhamma for someone who doesn't see the truth. So that is their Dhamma, that is to not see the truth. So it is also a word that means reality, the reality of something. So if you can remember these four words, kaya, vedana, citta, and Dhamma, and then if you were to die right now, based on the purity of these four words, you would be born immediately in heaven. So that is another good reason to recite Pali words and essentially holy scriptures, because they carry some purity or some weight. And to remember Pali words, for example, the four satipatthanas, body, feelings, and thoughts, and the Dhammas, or the truths, or the teachings, remembering and bearing in mind the Buddha's Dhamma, then that is going to be a very powerful catalyst if we were to suddenly die, and we don't know when we're going to die, right? So that is a good reason to, if you read this book, to also go and read the Pali in the back. And also you're going to become better at pronouncing Pali. And if you want to be really, really good at pronouncing Pali, better than I am, for example, you can look through the Digha Nikaya, or maybe one of the Nikayas, where there is a guide to how to read the Pali words, because they have all sorts of lines and dots over them, and some of them you might recognize from your own language. For example, you're good at Spanish, you would understand when the N has kind of this swirly thing above it and stuff like that. But anyways, always good to recite the Dhamma in Pali. And even if we don't understand all the words, or even if we recognize some of them, or the theme of them, that is also good. It is the sign of recognition. Okay. So now we read again what I read before, but now at least we're at the right place. According to this commentary, a person to be guided who is skilled in the attainment of jhana can retire to that attainment every time they become exhausted and restless from the insight meditation practice. This allows their concentration and insight knowledge to become mature. Excuse me. Where then they will no longer feel exhausted and restless, and may even sit tirelessly for a whole day or night. This is why the attainment of jhana is very helpful for a person to be guided. Nowadays, yogis. Mahasi Sayadaw always calls meditators for yogis, and I think that is a brilliant name. Nowadays, most yogis frequently encounter the difficulties mentioned above, but since they have no jhana to retire to, they just continue with the regular practice of insight meditation, and by doing so, exhaustion and restlessness disappear, and their insight knowledge matures. So that is bearing, called forbearance, or virya, bringing the mind back to unpleasant dhammas, or realities, which we cannot control before we have trained our mind. So for this reason, the Nitipakarana says that all three trainings are suitable for persons to be guided. The practices of morality and jhana concentration are very helpful to one's progress, but this doesn't mean that one needs to fulfill them for a long time in advance. In the case of sadhakani, we can assume that he became a stream enterer by practicing during his last days, since there is no mention in any Pali text of his attaining enlightenment while listening to a Dhamma talk. He should be regarded as a person to be guided, rather than a person of quick understanding, or a person who understands through elaboration. Thus, it is incorrect to think that a person to be guided needs to purify his or her morality for a long time in advance in order to obtain path knowledge and fruition knowledge. In fact, even a person who is not able to realize enlightenment in this very life may experience all of the inside knowledges without having purified morality beforehand. This fact is illustrated by the story of Tambadatika. The story of Tambadatika. How amazing is it that we get to read these stories? In the town of Rajagaha, there was an executioner known as Tambadatika, which means copper whiskers. On account of his red mustache. Okay, so copper whiskers was a name he was given on account of his red mustache. So he was probably not born with that name. And that was kind of funny. But let's just continue on. Every day, in service to the king, he had to execute several thieves and bandits. After 55 years, he finally retired from his post. On the day of his retirement, he prepared some special rice gruel with milk that he hadn't had a chance to eat since he had become the executioner. Then he applied perfumes to his body, adorned himself with flowers, and put on new clothes. After having dressed, he sat down to eat the rice gruel. Just as he was about to eat, Venerable Sariputta, out of compassion, came to his door for alms food. When Tambadatika saw the elder, he was very delighted, invited the elder to come in, and respectfully offered him the rice gruel. After the meal, the Venerable Sariputta gave him a discourse on the Dhamma, but Tambadatika was so agitated by the memories of his unwholesome deeds of the past 55 years that he could not pay attention. When the Venerable Sariputta, and Sariputta is the Buddha's chief disciple, and the foremost in wisdom among the bhikkhus. When Venerable Sariputta realized this, he tactfully asked Tambadatika whether he killed the thieves because he wanted to or because he was ordered to do so. Tambadatika replied that the king had ordered him to kill them. Then Venerable Sariputta asked, "If that is so, are you guilty or not?" Tambadatika concluded that since he was not responsible for the evil deeds, he was not guilty. With this, he calmed down and asked Venerable Sariputta to continue his exposition. As he listened to the Dhamma with proper attention, he came very close to attaining the first stage of path knowledge, reaching as far as insight knowledge of equanimity towards phenomena, sankhara upekkha jnana. What a great word. Which is also known as forbearance in conformity, anulomika kanti. After the discourse, Tambadatika accompanied the Venerable Sariputta for some distance before turning back toward home. On the way home, a cow, actually a demon in the guise of a cow, gored him to death. When the Buddha arrived at the congregation of bhikkhus that evening, he informed him about the death of Sampadatika and asked where he had been reborn. The Buddha told them that although Sampadatika had committed evil deeds through his life, he was reborn in the Tutsita celestial realm, because before he died he had comprehended the Dhamma after hearing it from the Venerable Sariputta, and had attained the inside knowledge of equanimity towards phenomena. So what is phenomena? That is, for example, thoughts and memories and feelings and basically anything you experience can be called one kind of phenomena. The bhikkhus wondered how such a great evildoer could have won such great benefit after listening to the Dhamma just once. The Buddha said that the length of a discourse is of no consequence, but one single meaningful word can produce much benefit, and spoke the following verse: "Better than 1,000 meaningless statements is one meaningful word, which, having been heard, brings peace." That's the Dhammapada number 27. Sahasampi Chewaccha Anatapadasang Hitta Ekang Attaparang Seyoyang Sutwa Upasamati. Okay. Now, since he could not attain path knowledge and fruition knowledge during his lifetime, we clearly cannot even regard Sampadatika to have been a person to be guided, much less a person of quick understanding or a person who understands through elaboration. Nevertheless, even without pure morality, he was able to recognize the inside knowledges up through the knowledge of equanimity, which is actually quite high, toward phenomena, which is the inside knowledge that precedes path knowledge, and the last part of the purification of knowledge and vision of the path, Patipadanya Dasana Visuddhi. So Dasana, that means vision, and Visuddhi, I believe that is purification. Yeah, it must be. The knowledge precedes the path, and the last part of the purification of knowledge and vision of the path. Continuing on, why he was able to do so. He was able to do so because moral violations are not an obstacle to realization for lay people. Moral violations are an obstacle to the attainment of path and fruition for monks, but not for lay people, regardless of whether they are a person in his or her final life. So as we heard, let me just finish this. Regardless of whether they are a person in his or her final life, a person of quick understanding, or a person who understands through elaboration. So as we heard in the last episode, there are these 4 types of obstacles, which doesn't matter if you're a layperson, hinders you and blocks you from being able to attain the Aryan path or enlightenment. And they were killing your mother or father, or injuring an arahant, or killing an arahant, or injuring a Buddha. So even if you are a layperson and you commit one of these grave offenses, then the consequences will be unavoidable. The 2 reasons people fail to attain path knowledge and fruition knowledge. The 2 reasons that people fail to attain path knowledge and fruition knowledge in this life are bad companionship papamittata, and insufficient practice of instruction, kiriya parihani. We may take the case of Prince Ajatasattu as an example of bad companionship. Ajatasattu missed the opportunity for enlightenment because he followed the advice of his bad companion, Venerable Devadatta, and assassinated his own father. King Bimbisara killing... Oh, okay. And assassinated his own father, King Bimbisara. So I think King Bimbisara, forgive me if I'm wrong, he might have named his own child after his own father. But here we go. Killing one's father is one of the 5 fatal misconducts, and is necessarily an obstacle to not only path knowledge and fruition knowledge, but also to insight knowledges, such as the insight knowledge of arising and passing away. And also, based on what we learned last time, it is blockage to celestial rebirth. So that means you will go to hell. People may also fail to attain path and fruition because of inadequate practice. A man named Pesa, whose story is told in the Kandaraka Sutta, in the Majjhima Nikaya. Kandaraka Sutta failed in his spiritual attainment for this reason. The Buddha once gave Pesa a detailed discourse on the 4 types of persons. If he had listened to the discourse from the beginning to the end, he would have become a stream enterer immediately. Instead, he left before the end of the talk and missed that opportunity to attain path and fruition. Today, there are also many people like Pesa. They know the method, but never put it into practice, or are not serious in their efforts, and so they miss out on attaining the path and fruition. This is insufficient practice. A shortage of instruction was the difficulty when Venerable Sariputta gave a discourse on concentration instead of insight meditation to the Brahmin merchant Dhanajani, who was lying on his deathbed. As a result, the Brahmin was reborn in the realm of Brahma's retinue after having attained the first jhana. This was the case of insufficient instruction. If Venerable Sariputta had given the Brahmin a discourse on insight meditation, he would have obtained path and fruition in that very life. After having been reprimanded by the Buddha at his urging, Venerable Sariputta later went to the realm of Brahma's retinue and taught that Brahmin insight meditation. It is said that from that point the Venerable Sariputta never spoke on the Dhamma without teaching the 4 Noble Truths. So the highest goal for a Brahmin is to actually be born in that Brahma realm. So imagine you could be born in a Brahma realm where you can live for eons possibly, and then the Buddha's chief disciple comes to visit you to teach you further. I mean, I'm not saying that the Buddha's reprimand of the Venerable Sariputta was wrong, and I don't try to give you an idea that my comprehension is, anywhere close to Sariputta, or let's not even go that far as to mention the Buddha. But I definitely know that it would be a great luxury to be reborn, the fine material or immaterial realms, right? The Brahma realms. And then to be visited by the Venerable Sariputta. So it was a good thing that Sariputta actually took out the time and effort to go there. Nowadays, there are also many people like Brahmin Dhananjani who lack proper instruction and therefore miss the opportunity to attain path and fruition. Tambadatika failed to realize path knowledge and fruition knowledge due to lack of practice. Can't have been due to a shortage of instruction, since he was able to realize the insight knowledges up to the insight knowledge of equanimity towards phenomena. No, nor was a bad companionship the reason in the case of Tambadatika, the copper whisker guy. Purifying conduct with meditation. So now we get into the real meaty stuff, the good stuff. Moral purification is eventually necessary in order to attain the insight knowledges and path knowledge and fruition knowledge. So in cases such as that of Minister Santati and the others described above, they must have ultimately been able to purify their morality. They may have done this by forming the resolution just before or while listening to the Dhamma talk, not to break the moral precepts any longer. That resolution itself would have affected the restoration of their morality. Otherwise, nothing but the meditation itself could have restored their morality. The Patisambhidhamaka gives the following teaching on this subject. Morality is the abandonment of ignorance through knowledge, and the abandonment of the perception of permanence through contemplation of impermanence. Abstinence is morality. Volition is morality. Restraint is morality, and non-transgression is morality. All of these kinds of morality lead to a clear conscience, delight, pamoccha, joy, piti, tranquility, and happiness. They all lead to disenchantment, non-attachment, cessation, peacefulness, realization, enlightenment, and nibbana. Restraint is the training in higher morality. Tranquility is the training in higher mind. Seeing is the training in higher wisdom. So we have a lot of footnotes here, from 69 to 72. Knowledge that discerns mental and physical phenomena, and knowledge that discerns conditionality. And number 70 is non-restlessness, and 31 inside knowledge. Seeing, inside knowledge. High morality of tranquility is non-restlessness. And in the training in higher wisdom, the path of discrimination. Okay, so we have a little bit of Pali here. So this is I believe this is from the Path of Discrimination, translated by Bhikkhu Nyanamoli, and it goes like this. Nanyena avijjaya anicca nupassanaya nicca sanyaya pahanang silang veramani silang cetana silang samvaro silang. Silang, that means morality. And these different words before silang would be restraint, morality, volition is morality, restraint is morality, non-transgression is morality. Samvaro silang, atti avittakamo silang, eva rupani silani, chittasa avipattisaraya, sang samvattanti, pamojaya samvattanti vidya samvattanti passatiya samvattanti somanasaya samvattanti ekanta nibbitaya virakaya nirodhaya cessation upassamaya at apinyaya sampodhaya nibbanaya samvattanti yotatta samvarato ayang apisilakasika. It's really amazing to read this. Yotatta awike patto ayang adicittasika yotatta dassanato ayang appipanyasika. Morality by means of abandonment, knowledge that discerns mental and physical phenomena, nama-rupa paricetanyana, abandons the delusion of a person or being. Knowledge that discerns conditionality abandons the delusion that living beings appear without any cause, or that they are all created by God, Brahma, or other divine authorities. Understanding impermanence abandons the delusion that anything in the mind or body is permanent. To abandon in this context means to leave no place in the mind for those delusions, just as a light leaves no place for darkness in it. As a result, wholesomeness arises instead of delusion. The abandonment of the mental defilements through insight meditation is therefore considered morality, since it is foundation or basis, upararanga, for wholesomeness, and makes that wholesomeness firm and steadfast, samadhana. This is also true for the following types of meditative morality. Morality by means of abstinence. The commentaries and sub-commentaries unanimously state that the mind that arises during insight meditation, vipassanā cittupata, does not include the mental factor of abstinence from evil, viratti. On the other hand, the mind that arises during insight meditation is directly opposed to evil behavior and wrong livelihood. Excuse me. It brings about abstinence or morality by temporarily removing evil behavior and wrong livelihood. Tadanka pahana. Tadanka pahana. In the same way that path knowledge brings about abstinence from all evil behavior, magga virati, by completely removing evil behavior and wrong livelihood, samucchitana. Although path and knowledge takes nibbana as its object. That is actually a major statement. We just think, or don't think about this, but just listen to this. In the same way that path knowledge brings about abstinence from all evil behavior, magga virati, by completely removing evil behavior and wrong livelihood, samucchita pahana, although path knowledge takes nibbana as its object. So when you know the path to nibbana, then the knowledge of the path is based upon knowing nibbana, the kind of the destination or goal of the path. So anything that is able to, talking about mind states here, to take nibbana as its object, obviously that means that you are enlightened, but those are the states that kind of makes any meditation practice obsolete, in the sense that you take nibbana as your object. When insight knowledge arise, such a discerning mental and physical phenomena, they leave no place in the mind for the defilement of attachment to a person or being, non-causality, or to the notion of permanence, satisfactoriness, and self. At such times, the mental defilements that lie dormant have no chance to become active in the mind. When they are not active in the mind, there are no thoughts about a person or a being that are persons or being, and thus no obsessive defilements arise. And when thoughts that assume that there are persons or beings do not arise, immoral behaviors such as killing, stealing, and so on do not arise either, since none of the defilements, whether dormant, obsessive, or transgressive, can arise. One abstains from those defilements while experiencing any of the insight knowledges, beginning with knowledge and discerns mental and physical phenomena. Beginning with knowledge that discerns mental and physical phenomena. This is why it is called morality by means of abstinence. So this is on a mental level. Morality by means of volition. Mental volition often stimulates ordinary people who have no restraint to commit evil deeds. For example, obsessive thoughts. For an insight meditator, mental volition stimulates effective awareness of meditative objects. All of one's noting involves mental volition. This mental volition is weak and mostly not obvious when one's faith, will, chanda, and energy is weak. Mental volition becomes obvious, however, when one's faith, will, and energy are strong. So, mental volition is considered morality for an insight meditator. or a yogi, because it is a foundation or basis for wholesomeness and makes that wholesomeness firm and steadfast. Morality by means of restraint. The 5 kinds of restraint mentioned above are called morality by means of restraint. They are included in an insight meditative state of mind with every noting, and they thereby block and restrain the arising of immorality, mindlessness, ignorance, impatience, and idleness. This restraint protects one from self-indulgence. In an ultimate sense, morality by means of restraint includes only mindfulness, insight, forbearance, and effort. Morality by means of non-transgression. Transgression. The noting mind, governed by mindfulness, leads to non-transgression, since it leaves no room for delusion and no other defilements to arise. Volitional killing, for example, is a transgression, while refraining from killing is a non-transgression. In the same way, mindlessness is a transgression since it allows every kind of mental defilement, whether dormant or obsessive or transgressive, to arise. The noting mind, governed by mindfulness. The noting mind means one who practices insight meditation and notes whatever phenomena arises in the mind. So, for example, if you think about something, and we have went over this before, so just to kind of reiterate, when you think about something, you know the reality present of thinking, so you note to yourself, thinking, quietly in your mind, to remind yourself of the present reality. And when the thinking has stopped or ceased, maybe you're contemplating the object of your thought, which is, if you're kind of being carried away by the thought, you might think about, first you're just thinking, and then you're maybe thinking about the thoughts, what the content of the thought is. So let's say you think about a beautiful woman. First you're just thinking, and then you're maybe thinking about the looks or the properties of a beautiful woman. And so you're still thinking, but you're kind of lost or given over to the thought. So when you note and bring your mind back to realizing that it is just thinking, then you kind of snap back out of it, and you just realize, or you just see the reality of thinking itself as it is there. And this could also be with sights and sounds and smells, or remembering, or in the case of the earlier examples here, remorse. So if remorse or regret arises in the mind based off of bad deeds committed in the past, we remind ourselves of the present reality of being remorseful. So we could say to ourselves, regretting, noting quietly in the mind the regret. And also, of course, things like joy or piti. So we don't just, oh, now it's a good sensation, and now I just don't note it and let it take me or carry me away. So we also have to note even Dhamma piti, for example, the joy of the Dhamma, reading and studying the Dhamma, so we don't get carried away by our infatuation with the Dhamma. So we just have to remember, oh, joy has arisen in the mind. And maybe we could also see the causality here as being the Dhamma study, which is the cause for joy. And so we can see different things as long as we note to ourselves whatever is present in our minds. So that is the noting mind, governed by mindfulness. On the other hand, is a non-transgressive, since it leaves no room for any defilement, whether dormant, obsessive, or transgressive. Thus, the noting mind governed by mindfulness is morality by means of non-transgression. Among these 5 kinds of morality, we can only directly experience morality by means of mental volition, and morality by means of restraint. Morality by means of abandoning defilements is simply an absence of defilement. According to the Visuddhimagga, the path of purification, morality by means of abstinence and morality by means of non-transgression are both equivalent to the mind that arises during insight meditation. Although these two are the same in an ultimate sense, morality by means of abstinence refers to abstaining from defilement, while morality by means of non-transgression refers to avoiding transgression by not allowing defilements to arise. So now we're getting into the arising of phenomena. So everything that arises persists for a little while, and then it ceases. This is the law of kamma. And this is the law of causality, since nothing is permanent. Morality as remote and immediate conditions for concentration and knowledges. Laypersons can use insight meditation to fully purify the 4 kinds of morality, regardless of whether or not they have practiced morality for a long time beforehand. We may wonder, however, what kind of morality they must develop as a basis for their concentration and insight knowledge, given that the Buddha has said on many occasions, "A man established on morality, wise, and so forth, develops the mind and wisdom." This was very abbreviated, I can see. So with the footnote 73, the connected discourses. The text is modified to match translation of the terms herein. Sile patitaya naro sapanyo chittang panyanancha bhavayam. Develop the mind and wisdom. Bhavana means to cultivate, develop. Oh, really sitting good here. So let me just sit upright. I think that's better. The answer is that all meditators should develop concentration and insight knowledge based on 2 kinds of morality. Morality that has been purified before meditation, upapaka, and morality that is purified during meditation, sahajata sila. Morality that has already been observed for some time before taking up meditation practice serves as a remote condition or prior cause, pakutupanisaya, for the arising of insight concentration and insight wisdom, as well as for path concentration and path wisdom. So these things can also lead to a kind of a rapture. Rapture. Is that PT? I don't think it is. Let's try and look up the word rapture. ataman natta. And there's also this word maganka, the constituent of the path. Right view, right aspiration, right speech, right conduct, right livelihood, effort, right mindfulness, and right rapture. Maganka. Right rapture. It's a good thing I looked that word up. I don't think I've read that before. Oh, let me just get back to the chat in case someone comes to chat with us or ask some questions. The morality that accompanied prior insight knowledges and path knowledge and fruition knowledge also serves as the remote condition for later insight concentration and insight wisdom, as well as for path concentration and path wisdom. The pure morality that accompanies each and every moment of insight knowledge and path knowledge is the immediate condition or present cause, sahajatinasaya, for the concentration and wisdom involved in that very moment. If a person has purified his or her morality before taking up meditation, then his or her concentration and wisdom are based on both remote and immediate moral conditions. If, on the other hand, a person purifies his or her morality only through insight meditation, then his or her initial concentration and wisdom are based only on the immediate moral condition, while his or her succeeding insight concentration and insight wisdom, as well as path concentration and path wisdom, are based on remote and immediate moral conditions. Right? 74? Oh, okay. Okay, that's a reference to the Vipassanā Mahatika. The power of meditation to purify morality for monastics. Since the above types of morality are associated with meditation, a monk may also use insight meditation to purify two kinds of morality for monastics: the morality of observing the monastic precepts and morality of pursuing a pure livelihood. This is the case because the removal of delusion and so on does not allow for the presence of defilements, whether they are dormant or active. In addition, a monk automatically fulfills the morality of considering the purpose for the four requisites if he consumes them mindfully. The main purpose of this type of morality is to keep defilements from arising in connection with the four requisites. Actually, by considering the purpose for his consumption, a monk can protect himself from active defilements, but not from dormant ones. By practicing insight meditation, though, a monk can prevent defilements from lying dormant in the four requisites. Though, a monk can prevent defilements from lying dormant in the four requisites by practicing insight meditation. Most monks still fail to practice meditation. They think that it is more important to consider the purpose for consuming the four requisites than it is to practice meditation. They may have difficulty accepting the fact that a monk automatically fulfills the morality of keeping in mind the purpose for using the four requisites if he consumes them mindfully. In fact, the meditation practice is much superior to the practice of keeping in mind the purpose of using the four requisites. The Buddha said that meditation practice for just one moment can establish good morality. Bhikkhus, it is just for the time of a finger snap a bhikkhu develops the liberation of mind by loving kindness. He is called a bhikkhu who is not devoid of jhana, who acts upon the teaching of the teacher, who responds to his advice, and who does not eat the country's alms food in vain. How much more then those who cultivate it? Because it is for just a time of a finger snap. A bhikkhu dwells contemplating the body in the body, feeling in the feelings, mind in the mind, phenomena in phenomena, ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful, having removed longing and dejection in regard to the world. He is called a bhikkhu who is not devoid of jhana, who acts upon the teaching of the teacher, who responds to his advice, and who does not eat the country's alms food in vain. How much more, then, those who cultivate it? So here we have something, and it is a little bit hard to understand. So the Buddha says, the body in the body, the feelings in the feelings, the mind in the mind, phenomena in phenomena. And the last one here, phenomena in phenomena. Ardent, clearly comprehending, mindful, having removed longing and dejection in regard to the world. So the body in the body. So you have, for example, right now, let me give you an example of me. I have my body. My posture is that I am sitting. So within this posture of sitting, I can feel the pressure from the chair, or me sitting on the chair, and I can feel the ground under my, right now, left foot. So we also have feelings in the feelings. So for example, I can also feel the weight of this book, for example, this body of work. I can feel also the four elements in this book. So for example, the weight of it is related to the water element, and the hardness of it, you have this is hard, it is not soft, like for example this. If I touch this is very, very soft, my shirt, but the book has a hard surface here, but the pages, they could be said to feeling soft like. So that would be the rigidity and the earth element. So the softness or hardness of the book. And what do we have more? Oh yeah, we have the air element, which is the pressure upon contact. So we have the weight, but it is not actually, when I feel the book in my hand here, that is the contact itself. That is the sign of the air element. Because as, I don't know if most of you know, but I don't actually even touch this book. Apparently we never touch anything actually, because of the law of atoms. So what we do have is pressure of air. Or we could say that the pressure felt in my fingers here, this finger for example, or this finger, the pressure felt from the book lying on my hand That is the sign of the air element. And we can also say that since I'm holding this book, I can kind of feel heat around this finger, and the heat is actually coming from me. So that is, again, part of my body heating up the book. If I touch it here, it's cold, mostly cold. But if I touch it under my finger, the book is warm. So that is the fire element. So those are the 4 elements. So you could say that that is how you should contemplate the body in the body. And we should, as the Buddha taught his son Rahula, Venerable Rahula, that we should be like the elements. Water doesn't care or say anything about if anyone puts dirt into it, or if someone uses the water to wash their bodies with it. Water doesn't discriminate or say anything to that at all. It just washes away the dirt. So we should be like the elements, as the Buddha taught his son. And we should not lie. That is also important. He also taught that to Venerable Rahula. So that is how I understand contemplating the body in the body and the feelings in the feelings. That would be to recognize, for example, feelings in the feelings. So we could say we have physical feelings, like for example I can feel the weight of the book, but we could also say that when we lose someone, for example, or someone dies who we love, we are also struck by feelings of sadness and feelings of loss. And to not take care and contemplate and note when these feelings arise and as they persist. This is the non-contemplation of the feelings in the feelings. So we can say that in feelings there are many types of feeling, and we should make sure to be mindful so we can contemplate the reality of experiencing feelings themselves. So what I'm trying to say is that all this body in the body and feeling in the feeling and mind in the mind, it doesn't actually mean that you, for example, in your head, and I'm not trying to joke here, but it doesn't mean that you in your head have a little body, or that this physical representation is just a kind of illusion or a shell, and within it there's another body, for example a soul or some kind of idea like that. That is not to understand this correctly, to assume that. So when the Buddha says the body in the body, and the feelings in the feelings, and the mind in the mind, I think he means, and right now I'm going a little bit off script, so that's why I say I think he means that we should be able to mindfully contemplate the feelings that arise based on the apparatus or the capability of feeling feelings. So if we, for example, just neglect all our feelings and all our thoughts and all our likes and dislikes, and we're not contemplating our own relation to our own body, feelings and thoughts, then we are not practicing what the Buddha prescribed. And phenomena, that would be the Dhammas. Loving kindness refers, and now we will continue on. Loving kindness refers to the ordinary loving kindness that anybody can develop. It does not refer specially to absorption, jhana, or access concentration, upachara, or of loving kindness. The Anguttara Nikaya commentary says, loving kindness here refers neither to absorption nor access concentration gained by practicing loving kindness, but to ordinary loving kindness, wishing for the well-being of creatures. Let me just put it down for a while. I go up here. Mittaya sabba pupang satta pupa pahako nama newa appana na upacharo sattanang hitta paranamatta mewati. On loving kindness. Thus, if a monk develops loving kindness or any other type of meditation, whether concentration or insight, just for one moment, he can be counted as a trainee, seka. His consumption of public alms food is therefore beneficial to himself and his donors. Of course, this also goes without saying for those who uninterruptedly develop meditation. The Anguttara Nikaya commentary explains this as follows. If a bhikkhu develops loving kindness for just one moment, his consumption of public alms food is not in vain, but beneficial to both himself and to his supporters. Amoga paripoka. How is it beneficial to himself? Since he develops loving kindness, his consumption is his own. Sammi paripoka, debt-free. Ananya paripoka, passed by inheritance. Daya ja paripoka. Even if he consumes the food without considering its purpose, he is not liable for any debt, since he has given the full benefit to his supporters. The development of loving kindness itself is, of course, also beneficial to him. This is how a moment's practice of loving kindness is beneficial to the bhikkhu himself. The alms donors can also enjoy great benefits in this case, since they are offered the alms to a bhikkhu who is one of the 8 worthy recipients, one who is making an effort to attain the fruition of the first stage of enlightenment. Let's see if it says Sotapanna. So chaotic. Let me try and hold this major body of work with my body while I slide this up to read. Having already attained the path of a stream entrance, Sutta-patti-magga. Oh, okay. But as both sides derive much merit, we say that it is beneficial to both himself and to his supporters. Thus, the bhikkhu and the donors can benefit from just a single moment of loving kindness, to say nothing of when it is uninterruptedly developed. So, even for just one moment if you cultivate, or in this example here, when a bhikkhu cultivates loving kindness, it is of benefit to both himself and the donors. To say nothing of when it is interruptedly developed. Let's just leave it at that. This commentary very directly expresses how rewarding the development of loving kindness is. The same is true of any other meditations, whether concentration or insight, according to the Pali canon. The commentary does not mention other concentration or insight meditations, specifically because, having explained one meditation, the other can be understood. analogously. Therefore, insight knowledge fulfills the morality of keeping in mind the purpose for using the four requisites. Amazing explanations. Nota bene, the practice of morality is essential. My purpose in explaining that the practice of meditation alone can purify morality is not to downplay the importance of practicing morality, but to overcome the mistaken notion that meditation should only be taken up after morality has been fulfilled for a long time, and not to refute the idea that morality as an immediate condition is not an adequate foundation for meditation. Such notions may prevent you from beginning meditation sooner rather than later. They may also lead you to deprecate those who probably practice meditation. In fact, morality should be regarded with the greatest honor and respect. Perhaps 99% of the time, lower rebirth is a result of moral violations. More than half of those who enjoy human or celestial births may only be able to do so because they have practiced pure morality. Most of those who obtain path and fruition have probably purified the morality in advance, and this could also be meaning for countless lifetimes training in morality, not just for a few years in this life. It could be like for millions of births. People have been training in this, depending on their own kammas. People like the minister Santati, who was able to obtain path and fruition without developing morality beforehand, are certainly few and far in between. So you should protect your morality with great care, just as you would protect your very life. You should not be negligent about your behavior, thinking that you can correct it later. You might die at any time and be immediately reborn in the lower worlds if your morality is deficient. Morality is especially important for those who are practicing meditation. They should even honor and respect it more than their lives and keep it fully purified. So that essentially means that if someone, and you are a skilled meditator, if someone then comes and says to you, you should tell lies and kill your mother and father, then it is better for you to be killed than you should break your own morality. I mean, it is pretty obvious, right? Therefore, if you wish to practice meditation, you should observe in advance the 5 precepts, or 8 precepts topped with right livelihood, in order to strengthen the development of concentration and insight knowledge, even if your morality is already generally pure. If you plan to participate in an intensive meditation retreat, leaving all worldly responsibilities behind, you should observe the 8 or 10 precepts. If you purposely and properly purify morality, then you will have a clear conscience every time you reflect about morality during your meditation practice. You will be able to experience joy and delight, tranquility, happiness, and peace by observing the physical and mental processes every time they arise. You will be able to see things as they really are and gain further insight knowledge. Here ends Chapter 1 regarding the purification of conduct. So, here we are. And the next chapter is going to be called Purification of Mind. So we got through the first chapter, first 44 pages, and we are ready to begin on page 45. Next time. Purification of Mind. So that's going to be very, very cool and interesting and awesome. And we can look very much forward to it. And yes, thank you so much for your wise attention and for listening to this whole talk. You have come so far as to be watching this, which is the end of episode 3, concluding the first chapter on purification of morality or conduct. So I also want to say congratulations to you for having a mind which is keen on and interested in these kinds of highly spiritual and mostly unfathomable concepts, such as the Buddha's Dhamma. It is a very, very rare opportunity for us, all of us, to have the opportunity to still study and practice, and especially under teachers who are able themselves to pass on the lineage of the Buddha. So if there were no enlightened beings in this world, there would be no Buddhism, there would be no teaching, there would be no practicing. But since there are teachings and teachers and practicing and practitioners, yogis, there are still found enlightened beings such as Sotapanna, Sakadagami, Anagami, and Arahata. These beings have not yet left us, because if they had, we would no longer have the Buddha's Sasana, the era of the Buddha, which still remains 2600 years almost after the Buddha's passing. I believe it is around 2500 or 2500, and is it 67 or 68? Something like that, pretty close to that. So, yeah, congratulations. And also, if this was the first episode you watched, I will make sure to put a link to the whole playlist below this video. And you can go back and watch the first episode, the beginning of the Purification of Conduct. And I hope very much that you will be interested in joining us in the next episode, where we will begin on chapter 2, Purification of the Mind. Yeah. And so, with all that, let's do a few moments of mindfulness meditation, focusing our minds on the arising and passing away of phenomena in the body, in the feelings, in the thoughts, and in the reality of those phenomena. Meaning that we try to see if they are permanent or impermanent, if we can control them to stay, or if they just disappear on their own, or if they make us suffer by us trying to hold on to something which has already left us. So let's do a few moments of mindfulness and try to really look at how things arise such as feelings and thoughts, and they persist for a little while, and then they cease, which is a totally impersonal process, meaning that we do not have any control over them. Even if we keep ourselves thinking about the same thing, prolonging it, it is not the same thought. It is us or ourselves clinging on to or giving rise to the creation of new kamma, of new thoughts. So with that, let's try to close our eyes, and we can sit comfortably, and we can do a little bit of meditation, and then that will conclude this third episode. Here we go. Now that I'm sitting here meditating myself, I think that I forgot to tell something about the meditation practice. We should actually try to look at the stomach as it rises and falls as we breathe. So as the stomach expands or rises, when we breathe in, we can say to ourselves and be mindful of the physical phenomena of the body or the stomach expanding, and we can say to ourselves, rising, for as long as it rises, and then we can say falling, as it falls when we exhale. And if anything comes into our minds while we do this, like a thought, just note the thought as thinking. And if this thinking persists, we can say that we are distracted, and try to guide our minds back to the stomach. So we can again focus on the rising and falling, the physical phenomena of breathing. We're not going to say breathing in and breathing out, because that is not the experience. The experience is the expansion of the rising of the stomach and the falling. So that's why we're going to note precisely the experience where it is happening here. So we try to send our mind down into the stomach so we are with the experience as it happens. And we're not just up in our heads thinking about something that is happening elsewhere. We are using all of our attention to be with the experience, and that's why everything else that happens is just a distraction. Or we should look at it as just thinking, distracted, to rise, falling. We're also going to see that we can't actually control our breath or make it smooth and perfect and beautiful. And we can also see, we're new to this, that when we focus on it, it's kind of agitating and it can be painful. And it can also make our breath seem hollow or superficial, like if the breath is up here, like we feel like it's hard to breathe maybe. But that is the sign of incontrollability or non-self. We should just note, try to see that it is out of our control. Not obsessive over it or become scared or afraid. We just note breath is superficial or is fast or is slow. It is impermanent. It's not satisfying us. And it can make us suffer when we try to obsess over it. Make it smooth and perfect and beautiful while we are unable to control it. It makes us suffer. So we should just let go.